It's the Inspirational Power Hour with your host, Chandra Wise. And guys, you know, I absolutely love sharing new music with you guys, brand new artists, and today is no different. And so today, guys, I'm so excited to share with us. We have a special guest, Miss Jenny Weaver. How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being with us today, Jenny. We're excited to have you.
I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
So, Jenny, listen, we have to start from the beginning. Now, you have to tell us your story, how you started in music and ministry. Give us the whole backstory.
The whole backstory. Well, I was raised up in a Christian home, and towards my teenage years, I really strayed and went way out there. I got involved in witchcraft, and I used to cut my wrist terribly. I was addicted to that. And then around 17 years old, I ended up I ended up homeless, actually on the streets of Sarasota, Florida, my hometown. And I carried a backpack, my guitar, and I slept in the courtyard of the Sarasota Opera House. I would jump the fence, and that's where I would sleep. That just took me out there to a whole world of drug addiction. I was on drugs many years, on and off for 9 years, in heroin, meth, and anything that you could think of, and was in a really deep, dark place. And then the Lord began to get my attention around in my 20s, and I just cried out to the Lord one day after 9 years of this, on and off, just an endless cycle of insanity. I cried out to the Lord one day, and my prayer was quite simple. It was, God, help me. When I said, God, help me, and I really meant it, and the Lord knew I meant it, He began to turn my whole life around. I mean, within just days, my whole life began to turn around, and He got me to a safe place where I was able to get help. And I was finally able to eat after days and days and days of not eating and not having a proper care at all for myself. And then the Lord began to instill a worshiper in me. As I played guitar, but I just didn't play for the Lord. I would just make up worldly, whatever songs I wanted to. And then once the Lord delivered me, He began to put this love for Him in my heart. And so out of that flowed spontaneous worship, where I would just sit with my guitar in a room and play, and all of a sudden songs would flow. I mean, from start to finish, I would just have the song. So I began to record those with my phone because I thought, wow, this is different. I hadn't seen anyone do this. Just a spontaneous song. Well, come to find out, many people do it. I found Bethel and a few other artists that were psalmists, and so that's how my journey started. And then I began to do Facebook Live videos, and of last year in the summer, and I had about 20 or 30 viewers that would watch me. And then the Lord said to my heart in December, just sing the scriptures. And I said, Lord, that's not going to work. No one's going to want to see me just singing out of the Bible. I'm not going to have a song. I mean, it's just not going to work. Well, He just was persistent. And I said, okay, yes, Lord, I will do that. And January 5th, I did the first Singing the Scriptures. And that video, it didn't have 20 or 30 viewers. It has over 500,000 now. It just went crazy. And so from that, I got into the studio probably that next week and began to write and to record the music that people are hearing now.
Now, Jenny, wait a minute. That is such a powerful and amazing story. Now, we have got to backtrack. I'm telling you, I don't even know where to start. There's so much in your story and in your journey. But you talked about getting to a place and hitting that rock bottom where you just had to cry out to God. Now, you know, did you grow up in a Christian family? How did you know to begin to cry out to God at that point in your life?
Yeah, I grew up, my parents actually were ministers, and so I was brought up in the church. I mean, church was all I could remember. And at the age of 6 years old, we had a prophet come to our church, and he called me. I was in the back, just 6 years old, and he said, that little girl right there, come up here. And he began to speak into my life, and he said, you're called to be a worshiper. And so I knew the Lord. I had many encounters and dreams of the Lord, and then I just strayed. So when I got to that point of rock bottom, I knew to cry out to the Lord. In fact, every time I hit rock bottom, it felt like I was crying out to the Lord. Like even, I feel like even the world knows, like, how to call out to Jesus. We see like when people get in car accidents. I've been in cars with people that weren't believers, and we almost hit another car, and we were all crying out Jesus. So it's like the Lord almost puts that in us where we know to cry out to Him.
And so, Jenny, you talked about a lot of things. You talked about experimenting with drugs. You talked about the witchcraft. You talked about self-harm. Let me ask you this. When you were dealing with those things, especially when dealing with the self-harm, I know you said you got to a place where you did reach out for help. But how, when you were dealing with those things, were you dealing with them in silence? I mean, were there people around you that knew about it?
Yeah, I did. Well, I had other young ladies, my friends who were in high school with me, and so we pretty much all were doing it. So like when I say birds of a feather flock together, I mean, I found people that were doing those same things. And this was the era when alternative music came out and was really big on the scene. When we're talking about Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, things like that. And so that cutting and Marilyn Manson, all of that was, it was in the music. If you listen carefully, it was in the music. So what I was opening myself up to, I began to do, and because I didn't feel any self-worth, I didn't feel like I had any self-worth. Yeah. So I began to cut, and that was kind of like the release of the pain, but really it was just a whole dark world that the enemy had just kind of wrapped me up in.
All right, guys, again, we are talking to recording artist Miss Jenny Weaver. Now we're going to play her song, Let the Rivers Flow, in just a little bit, so you got to make sure that you stick around for that. More with my conversation with Jenny Weaver coming up in just a minute. You don't want to. All right, guys, you're listening to the Inspirational Power Hour, and again, we are talking to recording artist Jenny Weaver. Jenny, I'm telling you, we are so grateful for God's grace, and we're so grateful that you have come out on the other side of all of this, and this has led you to this place right now. You're here talking about your ministry and your music, the story of your deliverance. You have this single entitled Let the Rivers Flow. So tell us all about this.
Let the River Flow was a song that actually was made on the platform of my church. My pastor had asked me to come back up. We do altar call after every service, and he asked me to come back up and sing. And so I was singing this song that most people know. There is a river whose streams. So I was singing that, and all of a sudden I began to sing, let the river flow. And so that's how that came. And the song was written in front of everybody in that service. And then I went back home and kind of tweaked a few things and got it into the studio right away.
And the full album is entitled Run with the Horses. So tell us all about that.
Run with the Horses is a song that's on the EP. And it came from the scripture, Jeremiah 12:5, where it says, if you run with the footmen and they wearied you, how can you contend with the horses? Or how can you with the horses? And so my worship coach, when I was last year, my husband and I, we lost a baby in the summer. And after losing the baby, we had like a full-on attack where people didn't want me to sing. They didn't want me to lead worship. They didn't want me to flow. They just wanted me to do it. You get up there, you do your little time, and then you get off and you go sit down and you be quiet. And so this full-on attack came. And so my coach said, if you're letting all these people weary you, how are you ever going to be able to do what God's really called you to do when He's called you to the nations? And so that, I was in a room one night with my daughter, and I was putting her to sleep, and she was staying up late, actually. And so I had my guitar, and she has all these horses around her room, these dolls that we've got here. And all of a sudden, I just began to sing, I was made to run with the horses. And the song just flowed out of me, and it talks about, you've lost people in your life, and they've come and they've gone, and the struggles of life have come against you, but God has never left you, and He steps in right in time. He's called you to run with the horses, fly with the eagles. So we put our trust in God. We put our trust and our hope in Jesus. And so that song is dear to my heart.
All right, everybody, make sure that you check out Run with the Horses with Miss Jenny Weaver. Now, Jenny, is the full album available everywhere for people to pick up now?
Yes. Everywhere you can get music, it is out there. And also from my website, you can get hard copies. And I sign them, pray over them, and we send them out. And yep.
All right, Jenny, before we get ready to go, if you could speak to someone that might be in the middle of their rock bottom right now, what would you say to them?
I would say that the best thing to do is to tell somebody, because a lot of times when people are in that lifestyle, there's this shame that comes upon them, and the shame keeps them in silence, and the silence keeps them sick. And so I confessed it. I went to some people that were in rehab, and they had all those facilities, and I said, listen, I need help, and if I don't get help, I'm going to die. And so they were able to help me. So expose that thing, get it out there, tell your family, tell your friends, tell people that you know aren't going to use it against you, but they're going to say, okay, now we understand what's going on, and just surrender to God. You know, I love all the self-help programs out there, and I think they're wonderful, and I definitely support them and have been in them. The one thing that you have to have above all of that is a surrendered heart to God, because He truly is the only real, true help that can get you set free and keep you set free.
All right, guys, we are about to take a listen to Let the Rivers Flow, coming from Miss Jenny Weaver. Jenny, I would love it if you would go ahead and set this up and introduce it to our listeners.
Yeah. So this song you guys are about to hear, Let the River Flow, I believe that it's a song of the hour. I believe it's a song that the Lord wants to spread all across the world, because He is the river, and He wants to bring the dry places alive in your life. He wants to make you prosper even as your soul prospers. So as the river of God begins to stir in your life, I pray just a massive blessing on you in the name of Jesus. Be blessed with this song.